Good evening and welcome to another edition of Resource PNG. Tonight we look at a report on the Gender and Extractive Industries Symposium held at the University of Papua New Guinea, highlighting the importance of women participation in the extractive industries. Later in the show we see how the alluvial mining sector is slowly regaining prominence. The Gender and Extractive Industries Symposium held at the University of Papua New Guinea in August of this year had brought together people from the mining project as well as academics and students of UPNG, including women, to discuss how best they can participate meaningfully within the mining projects in the country. According to Dr. Kirsty Gillespie, one of the organisers of the two-day symposium, such discussion is one way that people, especially women, can identify themselves at the community level, increasing their chances of participation in the making of agreements. It also increases their employment opportunities in the PNG mining sector. Dr. Gillespie said women's involvement in extractive industries will help the industry function more effectively. The organisers say the symposium is a further part of enhancing and supporting the drive of the World Bank to have a Women in Mining Initiative, or WIM, which serves to action on women's empowerment in mining communities and strengthen the social and economic status of women. WIM, over the many years since its inception in 2003, has brought together community women with top government officials, mining executives and international expertise. The conference that followed provided an avenue for PNG women to use their voices to demand greater participation in planning and decision-making and a share of potential benefits. According to Dr. Gillespie, the two-day Gender and Extractive Industries Symposium had similar aspirations.
I think to include women in the extractive industries is really crucial and beneficial for everyone, not just beneficial for women. So we can talk about women being involved in mining and the extractive industries on a community level. We can talk about increasing women's voice at the table in the agreement making process, right through to women's employment in mining industry. So there's a number of ways that women can be involved in the extractive industries, and their involvement and inclusion will help those industries function more effectively. So this symposium that we're working on today, Gender and the Extractive Industries in Papua New Guinea, is really part of a trajectory in Papua New Guinea looking around the focus of women and including women and looking at gender issues in this area. So there's a number of initiatives that have already been established, funded by the World Bank, for example, and we see this event as part of that trajectory. We're very interested in partnerships with other industry, with other organisations, and we hope that this symposium will be a good way to keep the conversation going about how to include women in the extractive industries.
One of the participants of the symposium, Mr. Patrick Lombaya, echoed these sentiments, saying that women in mining impacted projects often are left out of agreement-making processes and miss out on their share of mining benefits.
From my own observation, the current situation does not see that women benefit directly, because a lot of agreements from past experience, it's been dominated by men, and a lot of women have missed out. And even the benefit sharing is completely misused or misappropriated by few individual landowners. And when you look at the landowner executives, they misuse a lot of money, and it's gone unnoticed, and the women and children from the mining communities, they suffer, and we need to allow women to participate. And the important thing in this country, we should know very well, should be aware of, is that the ownership of resources in this country is owned by indigenous people. That meaning that women owns the resources. at the first place in the prior, and informed consent, and then to negotiation process through agreements. So if women within the clan member they have the right to participate, and they should be given opportunity to lead their clan in whichever region in this country they come from, whether you're looking at the national system or at the maternal system of clan ownership in this country.
More of this report after the break. Thanks for staying with us. We continue our report on increasing women's participation in decision-making processes within the extractive industries. One of the speakers of the symposium, researcher Julia Keenan, who was part of the team that had conducted a case study on the Lihir mine in 2012, said that women from Lihir were excluded from the agreement-making process, and this had impacted upon the distribution of benefits. Ms. Keenan said it is important to note that impacts that the mining industry has on the social structure of those impacted communities.
It's conferences like this in PNG that have really moved forward and expanded our knowledge about the role of gender in mining, particularly in communities affected by mining. And there have been a series of really important conferences, and so I think this is really great. I think we join that tradition, and hopefully we'll go forward into the future and keep working on these issues. So thank you to UPND for hosting us as well. As Kirsty mentioned, I've worked at CSRM for a long time now, 7 years, and I do most of my work with Indigenous people, land rights, gender, community development. So we're talking outside the mine operation now. It's clear that the responsibility for development isn't just with governments anymore, or with donors or with NGOs. That private businesses need to pay attention to development issues, and therefore gender is a central issue. So at a local level, so we're talking at the mine site, it's particularly important to understand the impacts that the mining industry has on the social structure of that community. These communities tend to suffer the biggest impact of mining, but tend to also miss out on some of the benefits that might come from an increase in national revenue.
Ms. Keenan said that one major impact is the initial loss of land and livelihood. However, this loss can be mitigated by positive impacts such as new business opportunities, employment, and improved services and infrastructure. Ms. Keenan gave a presentation on the Lihir women case study. She said that one finding of the study was that women felt they were excluded from the mining agreement process, and this impacted on the distribution of benefits to them.
At Lihir, we looked at the 2007 negotiation of the integrated benefits package. So what we found there was that basically women were not substantively included in those negotiations. And, you know, we can see that that's connected to, you know, the national issue of gender inequality in Papua New Guinea, but it also had local elements and company elements that influenced that exclusion of women as well. So when we talked to a lot of the women from Lihir, they said they were really frustrated. They said that, you know, they believed that they had been excluded from the agreement process and that this had impacted the distribution of benefits, so that hadn't been fair. So in particular, when we talked to the women, they had concerns that being left out of the negotiation process meant that women were not receiving their share of benefits, that women's and youth programs that was targeted did not receive financial support, that women didn't have an opportunity to receive information about potential opportunities for development in business development or employment. And they also felt that because payments were going to men, they felt that men and some youths are misusing the benefits money through spending money on drugs, alcohol and extramarital relationships. So women clearly had a set of issues that they felt weren't being received by the company and that didn't factor into the negotiation of that agreement. They said that they would love to see a critical mass of women at the negotiation table, not just one special women's representative to speak for all women, but they wanted a significant presence. They wanted more women's representation in the Landowners Association. And I think, you know, this is a really good example for other parts of the world where there are significant gender inequalities and quite separate spheres of life for men and women, because in this case what we were hearing from women was that they wanted to do things collectively, that they wanted specific targeted women's programs.
Furthermore, the Women in Mining initiative established by the PNG Chamber of Mines and Petroleum and the World Bank attempts to address some of the gender-based problems faced by women. Although the initiative is a key example of an explicit mining and gender strategy at the national level, the policy is not regulatory and thus companies are not bound by it. The company also plays a key role in influencing the Landowners Association to appoint women's representatives to their organisation. Resource PNG continues after this break. You're watching Resource PNG. Alluvial mining first took PNG by storm during the early 19th century gold rush in Wau Morbe province. Since extractive hard rock mining has come on the scene, alluvial mining has taken the back seat. But now there are efforts to revive the small-scale mining sector. The inaugural PNG Alluvial Mining Convention and Trade Show 2014, held in Leh City in September, brought together all local and international stakeholders involved in or seeking to be involved in the alluvial mining sector. Stakeholders in the industry included alluvial mining communities from all areas of PNG, the regulators in mining, environment and safety, small and medium business promoters, financiers, joint venture interests, gold buyers, smelter companies and exporters, provincial and local level governments, lawyers, equipment manufacturers and suppliers. Alluvial mining first occurred in the Milne Bay Islands in the late 1880s. In 1922, the first mining operation began in Wau Morbe province by William Sharkeye Park and Jack Nettleton. In 1926, Wau became the hotspot for alluvial mining in PNG. The Wau Bulolo area became famous for its significant dredging operations from the 1930s. Bulolo gold dredging began operations in 1932 and was responsible for the bulk of pre-World War II gold productions, totaling about 40 tons. Whilst there are no accurate records of recorded gold during those times, it is through the recent activities of the Small-Scale Mining Branch, SSMB of MRA, whose accredited training centre is located in Wau, that we are aware of alluvial operations in most parts of mainland PNG and its island regions. SSMB's outreach program to date visited 28 active alluvial areas throughout PNG, and SSMB has certified over 3,000 alluvial miners over the last few years. There are reputed to be over 100,000 persons involved in alluvial mining across the country.
The mining sector remains the single largest export revenue earner in PNG and has consistently had that responsibility since independence in 1975. Firstly, underpinned by the Bougainville copper mine and shortly thereafter by the Octane mine. Our nation continued to be highly ranked internationally as one of the top countries for mineral prospectivity.
Alluvial mining in Papua New Guinea is seen as the poor cousin to extractive hard rock mining. Over the years, little attention has been given to the alluvial mining sector. Mining Minister Byron Chan said the contribution of alluvial mining to PNG's economy has not been given the recognition it deserves.
Government usually think about the big mining industry, and which has been sustaining this economy and giving the revenues for the government over the last 20-odd years.
While the government plans to support the alluvial mining sector, the mining minister said the government has another backlog of mining issues to deal with. One such issue is the Misima gold mine in the Milambo province, whose economy is now driven by alluvial mining. 20 years of mining operations on the island has left little for the people of Misima.
These are other things. You talk about economic development. You talk about other infrastructure development. I want to say our people first.
Likewise with the Prime Minister, we received a lot of correspondence from the Governor and the member for Samarai, the Deputy Speaker, on these issues. MRA are now assessing them, and hopefully we'll be sending the team down in the near future.
Mr. Chan fell short of commenting further on Misima, but said the issue is a sad story. The Mineral Resources Authority, meanwhile, wants to make sure that those who are facing the impact of mining operations are at an advantage, even at the end of mining activities. While only a few landowner groups are gaining the recognition they deserve, there are many others like the Misima people whose stories remained untold.
In the past 2 years of my tenure with MRA, I've observed, and I've sat back and observed for a while, the various issues facing the alluvial mining sector. There are definitely, as Otto mentioned, some historic and deep-rooted administrative issues which we need to resolve. There are some issues created by what can only be called rogue, greedy and misguided operators, known colloquially as the cowboys of the game. There are some issues arising from landowner squabbles and disputes and boundary issues. But most issues are merely created by a lack of awareness and, to a degree, naivety, especially surrounding the applicable regulations, which are complex. We can understand the difficulty of getting the regulatory concepts across to people at the local level. We recognise the time has come to act, to take the lead to introduce change. This means creating an environment for the alluvial mining sector which will enable increased productivity and profitability. In turn, this will help to achieve sustainable, safe and environmentally prudent alluvial mining development in rural areas.
Bulolo MP Sam Basil, who is vocal about the alluvial mining industry in his district, has recently this month pledged that funding will be made available for alluvial miners in the district. The WOW Small-Scale Mining School will continue to benefit from funding from the Bulolo Joint District Planning and Budget Priorities Committee each year to train local alluvial miners. Mr. Basil sees the future alluvial mining can provide for his people. Mr. Basil this month presented 93,500 kina to Al Comparativo, the manager of the school, to facilitate training of miners from the 110 wards of Bulolo. The school was established by Mineral Resources Authority, and Basil said the committee was obliged to continue its support. Basil said from the estimated 400 million kina projected into the national economy in 2011, more than 100 million kina came from the Bulolo alluvial miners. Comparativo thanked the Bulolo JDP and BPC on behalf of the MRA. Basil said only grade 12s passing out of Grace Memorial Secondary and grade 10 students from Bayun High selected into tertiary institutions will be accorded sponsorship from the Bulolo JDP and BPC. A participant to the conference said that he was pleased to have learnt a lot from the conference, especially on the environmental aspects of the industry.
Something where people align environmental issues. Desla we want to prepare desla. Narba something was we must comply. Want to sample all regulations belong mining act. This lam don't say. So this lam give me big opportunity. So big step now we plan kisin now. Long beni more this la our regulations. So time people kisim sila thinking now go back. People make sure that all this process of people go from small scale like going to mechanized mining na desla. People at least got some seven now. So environmentally too, it is but not in a problem people because people happiness. Now something was them use long chemicals. Yeah, the plant them use more mercury. Now some people also use more cyanide too, or some chemicals where it's very dangerous for us. But now people are clear how to use more. Well, safety involved all this or chemicals. So this areas we find out very useful.
That ends another edition of Resource PNG. If you have any comments or queries, do email us on this address, resourcepng@emtv.com.pg. Or to find out more, check EMTV online. That's www.emtv.com.pg and go to our Resource PNG page. Or you can check our page on Facebook. Until the same time next week, bye for now.